what's up guys? So in the last video, we used this amplifier to power some power tools like this heat gun, grinder, sawzall, etc. Today we're going to put this on a much more stringent test, and we're going to test if this 12,000 watt amplifier can power a welder and also a plasma cutter. So the welder and plasma cutter I have are dual voltage. They can be on 110 or 220. So we're going to run them on 110 and we're going to see how well they do. Obviously 110 welders and stuff don't do that great, but surely it'll do something. To give this the best chance for survival here, we have a pretty heavy gauge wire from this guy to here. It's not the biggest you're going to have, but it's going to be something like you're going to have for 110 stuff anyways. So we're going to see if this power bank here can run the welder and the plasma cutter, obviously not simultaneously. Also, I've got everything set up here for this guy, so when we start to recone that, if you're interested in that, stay tuned, and I'll show you guys how to recone a subwoofer with all brand new parts. So this is the welder that I'm going to be using. This is a Harbor Freight 200 amp welder. It does 110 volts and also 220 volts. There's a switch on the back, so we can go ahead and change that. Also, I have this thing right here. It's a Reboot plasma cutter. Also runs on 110 volts, so we're gonna try that out as well. I think we're gonna try the plasma cutter first, so I'm gonna pull it out and get it hooked up. So this plasma cutter has this little cord here where I can plug that into a 220 outlet, or I can unplug this and use a 110. So we're going to use this 110 plug here to power this plasma cutter. Okay, so we're back on the bench. I have the El Cheapo extension cord connected. It's all I have, and all my tools are over there. So this may add some problems, but we'll find out. We're gonna go ahead and fire up the amplifier. And once it's alive, we're gonna start feeding it some unhealthy chaos. So I'm gonna ramp that up to 122 volts. We're gonna leave it there. And I heard the plasma cutter kick on. Okay, so the plasma cutter did indeed kick on. It is set to 35 amps because that's all it can do in 120 mode. So let's start cutting something. I don't want to do too much, but I had this 1/4 inch steel. We're going to cut this 1/4 inch steel and then we're going to weld it back together. All right, so I'm just now putting in a brand new tip for this plasma cutter. We're going to give it the best chance of cutting this metal with this little bit of power we're providing it. So as you can see, this guy's hooked up. It is working. This is powered off of the amplifier right now using the same 60 hertz signal we did before. We're going to connect our ground loop and we're going to see if we can strike an arc and what happens. We're going to see if it cuts out or if it works or what. We're going to try to cut this pretty much right in half. This guy's only got 35 amps, so I don't know if it'll even cut 1/4 inch, but let's find out. It's still working. It's on. Let's... Well, we're off to a pretty slow start because it's struggling to cut this 1/4 inch, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the limitations of the machine at 120. I don't know. We have something a little smaller here though. This is some 1/8 inch material. Let's see if it'll cut that. Well, this thing's really struggling to hold an arc at 120 volts, even on something thinner like this. So, I don't know. Will the taramps plasma cut? Probably not. Well, just for giggles, let's hook up the welder and see if it can at least lay a little bead. I don't consider myself a professional welder, but if it'll make an arc and a bead, then I'll call that a success. And if it just sputters and pops, then I guess we will know whether it can do that either. All right, so let me show you guys what I did. I decided to bring this guy and plug it in directly here, and you can see I still have output from the amplifier, but this guy here has cooked. So there's a little reset. we're gonna try it again, but I think it's just gonna keep blowing that reset. Maybe if I turn the plasma cutter down, maybe it won't trip that reset. So let's try this again. We got our plasma cutter, we got the thinner metal here. Let's see if we can get that to cut. Well, it will cut, but it keeps tripping that little breaker guy. I may have to bypass that. Yeah, so I can't actually get this thing to cut. Even if I turn it down really far, it will cut the steel, but it keeps blowing that guy. So what I think I need is something to eliminate this guy from our circuit. Let me see if I can find something. Okay, so in the name of science, I have cut an extension cord very short. So hopefully the short cord will not protect, and hopefully it won't burn up. And if it does, it'll be very short. I'm gonna pull the wattage meter out since we're not using that right now anyways. We know that this thing can make plenty of power, and it's gonna draw whatever the tool's gonna draw, and the tool's gonna draw less than it can make. So I'm gonna pull that out, put this in, we'll try again. So the cool thing about what we're even doing here is this is relatively low amperage stuff compared to what the amplifier can handle. It can produce a lot more amperage than what we're just doing right here. But you can see we have this one connected here to the output terminals, just like that, the hot on one, the neutral on the other one. So let's go ahead and plug the plasma cutter back in and see if we can get it to cut. I would love to have the wattage meter hooked up and show all that really cool stuff, but it's just one guy. I do have the other camera, but then I can't play the frequency generator. So right now I'm just kind of having to wing it. But we will watch our voltage because that seems to be what matters the most. We'll turn the amp back on, we'll crank this back up. Amp is happy. Let's give her some output. 120 volts. That guy's on. Let's play. I'm happy to report that the age-old question that nobody asked, will a taramps plasma cut? The answer is actually a resounding yes. Not very graciously at 110 volts, which I don't think this unit does good anyways at 110 volts on thick stuff. But as you can see, yep, she chopped it right half in two. Not too much of a fuss, and nothing quit working. It all just worked. So that was cool. So we're gonna try to weld this to that other piece of metal that we cut it from, and let's see if it'll do that. So we're gonna plug our adapter that we made for the welder. We're gonna plug that in. We'll see if it comes on. So the welder actually has a little switch on the back we have to change for 120. And we got to give her the beans again. Ramping up our 60 hertz, 120 volts. Okay, she booted up. She's ready to go. Let's turn the induction down. I got the bottle on. We'll start pretty low, around 14 volts. Let's try it out. I'm not too optimistic, but we'll find out. All right, so I think what we're gonna do is just try to butt weld this to the end of the other piece. If we can get that to stick right there, that'll make me happy. So I'm going to use this other piece as sort of a guide to hold it while we weld. Let's see if we can't fill that little junction with just a little bit of chicken poop weld from Harbor Freight Welder. Safety first. We're gonna strike it and see if it'll. Okay, it did not fault whenever I struck it, but I did see that the fan kicked on, so obviously it's drawing some current. Still at 120 volts. Let's give her a little run, see what she'll do. Let's turn this in where you can see it. Little tack. Oh yeah, she burns good. No problems whatsoever. We're also turned way down, but let's just go ahead and run a really crappy beat across there and see if it'll do it. She did really, really, really good. That's a very small bead. Let's crank it up a little bit and push our luck. All right, we cranked her up to 16 volts on the welder. Let's try an uphill. Oh my God, it did it just fine. No problems. Let's crank it up a little bit more because now I'm optimistic. All right, we got our 18 volts. I'm just gonna go ahead and run sort of like a root down across here just to see if it'll sustain the arc. Okay, check that out. This thing laid a sustained arc, not a very good one. Maybe some settings or whatever. But the whole point is, it ran that bead without cutting off or glitching or nothing. That's crazy. So the answer to the second question that nobody asked, will the taramps weld? And I would say, astoundingly, yes. The taramps will weld. Kind of, if you do it right. That was pretty fun. Wow, I'm gonna go ahead and turn everything off, give this guy a break because it deserved it. So far, I'm really blessed because this whole experiment was not very expensive. I did not blow an amplifier, I did not blow power tools, I didn't blow power supplies, nothing blew, everything's perfectly fine and happy, so I consider that a win. And of course, the answer to the age-old question that nobody asked, will a taramps run power tools? Will it weld? Will it plasma cut? And technically, yes, it will do all those things, even though it wasn't made for that, and even though it's not supposed to. So that's pretty cool. So if you guys have any other suggestions of things I probably shouldn't do with my amplifier, let me know in the comments below, and I don't know, maybe I might get that a try. If you didn't already see, I made a short video about using this guy as a speaker. So we hooked it up and we played some sounds through it. And technically this guy did make sounds. It did turn into a speaker, although a very hot one because it's a heat gun. So if you haven't seen that, check out my reels. That's where you'll find that. That was pretty fun too. Well, until next time, I'm gonna give this guy a break. We'll shut her down. We're gonna start doing some stuff like maybe testing the subwoofer whenever it's rebuilt. I have all the parts right here to rebuild that guy. That's gonna be probably the next video. Then we got some 15s we got to hook up. We got some 18s we got to hook up. We have 8 12-inch subwoofers we have to hook up in a big box. So I would stay tuned for all of those things as well.